So my name is Liam Sharkey. I'm Director of Growth here at Mutual Value Labs. Um, and yeah, just introducing the session today. Before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes. The session is really designed to be interactive, really encourage that throughout. Please feel free to use the Q&A box, share questions, reflections, reactions, anything, all goes here. And we'll be keeping an eye on those and bring those in throughout the session today. I'd just say we are really intend this to be an open space, sense making. Please feel free to contribute candidly. And to set the scene for today, I'm being presumptuous here, but most of us on this call, for most of us, well-being will be one of the ultimate goals in society. But we all know that in practice, business leadership is still often shaped by short-term performance pressures that really fragment responsibility, erode trust, resilience, and real meaning for our work. So the question today really is not about whether change is needed, but hoping to get into some practicalities, how leaders can really lead differently in the future. And if we were to move business away from treating well-being as a secondary outcome, how might leadership, governance, decision-making be oriented? Obviously, super happy to have Victoria and Ruth here to talk with some real expertise. But this is, again, very much a space for reflection rather than prescription. So, Victoria, delighted to introduce Dr. Victoria Hurth. Victoria, you may well know, is an independent academic and co-author of Beyond Profit, Purpose-Driven Leadership for a Wellbeing Economy, and real leading voice on purpose-driven organizations. She brings well over 3 decades of experience, bridging kind of theory and practice, helping leaders navigate the complexity of building organizations that contribute to the lasting collective well-being. And speaking with, hopefully interrogating Victoria today, we have Ruth Wilkinson, strategic lead here at Mutual Value Labs. Ruth works with us, and if you don't know Ruth, she really specializes in guiding organizations through purpose-led transformation, identifying the systemic challenges they are best placed to address, and building the frameworks needed to really scale what we always talk about as mutual value. And she's done great work, if I don't mind, if I say so ourselves, with the likes of Mars, Heineken, JLL, NatWest, many more. And some of you may well also know her. She co-leads the Purpose and Strategy Lab within the Purpose in Practice community here in London. And with that, super happy to hand over to Victoria and Ruth to begin the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam, for the lovely intro. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I'd be introing myself. It's always nice to hear kind words from your colleague. Very excited to be here to talk to you and Victoria. And to see lots of familiar faces from lots of different avenues. I see some people here from our exec education, which is awesome. Some people we work with as clients, and some people from other communities of practice and other networks. So delighted to have you all here today for what I hope is going to be a very dynamic, open and exploratory conversation. We aren't going to spend long in plenary. We're actually going to head into breakouts very shortly in order to give you some space to reflect and to understand better where you're all coming from today, so that Victoria and I can shape the content around what might best pique your interest and meet your needs. But before we do that, I'd love to just give a quick intro to why I think this is one of the most critical, if not the most critical topic of our time. And why Victoria, we're so excited to have Victoria to be working with alongside us in this work. I first came across Victoria, I think 3 years ago now, at a gathering called Anthropy, which I know many of us here will have heard of or been to, where I heard her talking about why the world is the way it is today. And I'd always had this personal tension and a frustration about, I could see that we were orienting in the wrong direction and I couldn't articulate it, but I felt it. And I was frustrated and wanting to seek a career in which I could do something about it. But ultimately wasn't able to articulate it. And I sat in this room and listened to Victoria explain why we've ended up where we are. And And it was like a light bulb moment for me. And I've literally not looked back since, and basically followed Victoria wherever she's gone to make sure that I can continue to hear her evolution of her articulation. And that's what I hope for us all. Because I know that as Liam said, lots of us will be sat here thinking that well-being and long-term well-being for all people and planet, if not this as our ultimate goal, then what? But how? How do we do that? And those are the big questions of our time. These are the only questions of our time. And Victoria provides an amazing response to that question, which is why I'm incredibly excited to talk more about it. Liam's done the full formal kind of credentials for you, Victoria, but would love to hand over to you just to introduce yourself, and then maybe we can open the questions to the group to head off into breakout. So over to you, Victoria, to introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, everyone. What a lovely, warm welcome. And you're such an inspiration to me, Ruth. So back to you, everything that you've said there. I am. Please go on LinkedIn, connect with me, and you can see my background. But the bit that really matters is that I am still the young, curious child that I was when I was a teenager, going, what is this world that I've been plonked into? What the hell is going on? Why do we seem to be making decisions the way we are? Why do they go against what, if you look under the surface, people are really wanting to achieve and kind of have a really quite high level of consensus about what really matters? And why is there this disconnect? And how can we do things better? Because at the heart, I'm an optimistic person. And what gives me optimism is the people around me. You know, humans, when you turn your lens to the good version of humans, despite everything that we're living within, humans are incredible, loving, giving, and creative creatures. And we are using that energy to our own destruction. And so that's really the bit that I want to say, is that I've been in service to all of you and to the world for the last, I'm 50 this year. So, but since I was really small, to just try to get ahead of that question. It was only in 2002 I realized just how bad our decision making was when I was in South Africa at the time of the World Summit on Sustainable Development, and everything I'd done before met the world, the official world of sustainability. I never realized just how bad it is. But like Ruth said, if not now, and if not this, what? We don't get to not choose. And that, I think, is the theme that hopefully will come out. To bless you. To choose, to be a human is to have choice beyond our impulses. And that comes with opportunity, but also responsibility. And it also comes with a massive instinct to try to deny that choice if we do not have the tools and skills to be able to do that well and to be able to live with ourselves and those choices. So I think this is the heart of it. I won't say anything more now because I could just go on. So over to you, Ruth.
That was the perfect, I think, the right level of existential for us to go into breakouts to understand and explore a bit better in small groups. So we'd love you to chat with your peers here and explore some questions. And I've just added the questions to the chat so you can read them too and copy them out. You should be able to see them when you're in your breakouts. So the questions we want to understand are: what brought you here today? We're interested to know, have you seen Victoria speak before? Because she does a very important grounding of the concepts that if you haven't heard her speak before, we absolutely have to do. But if you're all like, we've heard her do it, we want to get deeper, then we can. So we can be as agile as we like, depending on how much you've seen. How familiar are you with the concept of governance and the concept of purpose-led business or purpose-led organization? And what are the key things you want to get out of the session? Quite a lot to talk about. We're going to give you 15 minutes in quite small groups to have a quick chat about that. And then if you can come back and share with us either reflections from your group or in the chat, we would love to hear that so that we can frame the rest of the session very specifically around where you're interested in exploring.
And can I just, before we go into breakout, just say, and do take advantage of this, because what an incredible group, huh? To be here on this session means that you have a lot in common and you are pushing at that leading edge. So I hope you also get to meet some people that you are kindred spirits with.
Yeah, absolutely. Just from scanning across the names, I know that that's true. So enjoy. We'll send you off, and you can always message us if anything's going on. But does that sound good? Is everyone clear on the questions? Everyone happy to head off? I see some nods. Lovely. In which case, I'm opening the rooms, and you should be invited to join your room now. If you joined a little bit late, I'll just need to add you to a breakout specifically. So give me a second while I do that. Welcome back. Welcome back. We've got some people back. Oh, they've still got 20 seconds. So you're the keen returners for whom the conversation wasn't rudely interrupted by being whisked back, I hope. The others have 8 seconds before they are rudely whisked back to the main room. All right, here's everybody else. Welcome back. Welcome back. Do take a second. If you're anywhere there might be some background noise, do pop yourself back on mute, because any little background noises might be disturbing. Hope you had wonderful conversations, and I hope you got to meet someone new, and maybe you saw a familiar face too. Let's hear a little bit of reflections. If anyone wants to share verbally, do feel free to put your hand up, or feel free to write in the chat any of your reflections. So primarily, we want to know what is it that you would like to get out of the session today, but also if you want to share any of your reflections on what governance means to you, what purpose-led organizations mean to you, and whether you've experienced Victoria's kind of introduction to this before, which she will do, because we know that not everyone will have done. So do add in the chat any reflections, or pop your hand up if you would be willing to share to the room.
If you have particular things that when I do the overview, so we're sort of flipping the session, that you want me to sort of unpack a little bit more, or to make sure I cover.
Yeah, I think I can start. We had like amazing discussions in our group, and one of the things that I think somehow is in common is we want to we share the same vision, the same intention, but it's always not easy like to do this inside corporations, because the incentives, the mindset that is in place is not always in this direction. So I think we discuss like how we are here to really understand and learn how could we do it, like how could we bring this purpose led more and more to the reality, and we also discuss the importance of like unlearning, and that everything like this change is not going to happen if we don't transform people in this position. So how could we like enable the unlearning, how could we open space for this change, how could we, yeah, I think that was that at least for me, like that's how I got it.
That's beautiful, Pat. Thank you. And we'll absolutely touch on that. Ina, I see your. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Feel free to tell me how your name is said if it's not how I said it.
Perfect. Yeah, wonderful. So I just want to reflect that it was very engaging, and that, of course, the time was way too short, and that all of us really saw the complexity of this issue. And I think it takes time to evolve, to learn, to find your personal pattern into the situation. And we also all had different words for that. It is a question of power, how to approach this issue we have, and how it came to this issue over the last decades. So for me, as a lawyer, I agree that governance for me is the most important part at the moment, to move from just sustainability as an isolated subject for some special people and for nature freaks, something like that, to really the core of society and of economy. But there are a lot of other questions, and this capitalism thing was something also a few of us in the group were raising. And maybe one question I would like to have answered by Victoria, just came up during the last learnings I had. I did another course really looking at the political development from colonialism, imperialism, and all the stuff. And there was an idea of that we invented the middle class might be a big problem. Because before it was very clear, a lot of people working class and a little bit of capitalist class. And the small class is more or less the one who are gaining profits from this situation currently. So how to handle this class stuff? Is it important? Is it not? Would it bring power to this whole purpose movement? Because I think the purpose we are speaking of is the purpose of the average people, which is kind of working class, because the differentiation is who can earn its living only from the money in the bank. So that would be an interesting question.
And
That
Ruth,
is interesting.
we have another summary from a group in the chat. That's really helpful if anyone else wants to do that. So thank you, Ina. That was I will certainly try and bring that in. Sorry, Ruth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you, Carla. I saw that you wrote, is governance the only way? What else? Which I think is a great question. And what does Victoria mean by wellbeing economy? What's the role of governments alongside NGOs and corporates? And how do we navigate the ongoing purpose-profit tension? And we'll just take one more reflection from Mina. If I've said that wrong, please do correct me.
Yeah, mine, that's correct. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Actually, we had a very interesting conversation that could be a webinar in itself. So I'll try to condense them as much as possible. But I think three main ideas came out of the conversation. The first idea was about attraction, because today we actually have an easy conversation in the sense that we are all convinced about the criticality of having a purpose-driven business and really trying to put that idea into the framework. But then you go up to the outside world in the perma-crisis environment we've been living in for the last few years. And many CEOs or many executive leaders have been their eyes off the purpose board, so to speak. So the idea was about how do we really create traction beyond this perma-crisis environment. The second idea was about the importance of engaging with the board. And if we are talking about the idea of governance, I think that the involvement of the board is extremely important. But I was also referring to one studies of PwC and the conference board of last years, which stated that only 32% of C-level executives do believe that the board members are actually equipped for the challenges we are actually facing, including purpose, sustainability, etc. And then I had like personally a very specific question, maybe for Victoria. So in this context, and considering the challenge it may be to actually preach about purpose to executive leaders, if you could share maybe 2 or 3 keys that you have seen successful in the way or in the way to challenge, not only to challenge but also to really onboard executive leaders to re-embrace the idea of purpose, but also to embed that in their strategy.
Great.
Amazing reflections. Thank you, Mina. I'm going to let you go, Victoria, because we have not got enough time. So Victoria's going to give her introduction, and then let's dive into these subjects. We're not going to be able to cover everything. This may be the beginning of a beautiful conversation, but it certainly isn't going to be the only conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. And that time is the thing. It would never ever be anything like enough time. And so this session is to draw out these things to get a sense of where we're at. And of course, there are huge amounts of material online, and there is the book in order for that sort of deepening of those questions. And this won't be the first or last. Now, I have some slides that are the sort of foundations, and I'll show them as and when needed. But I know sometimes actually just hearing someone explain things in a more fluid way can be useful. So I'll tap into those as and when. But I want to bounce off some of those questions. So starting with the why governance, and this really gets to the heart, I think, of the whole of many of those questions. Governance is like this hidden in plain sight power structure. So we heard the word power there. We need to move quite quickly to a level of literacy, debate, discussion, and skills building on the foundations of governance. The analogy that I use in general is that we're on a bus or on a ship. Let's call it a sailing ship. Let's make it less mechanistic. But that ship we're all on it together as humanity, and that ship we don't get to get off that ship because it's human consciousness, which means human choice. Now, what we don't realize is that when we're born into that ship has a wheel and a rudder that has been set by previous generations to go over the waterfall, right? Over the cliff. And some of us on this ship, many on this ship, don't even realize we're on a ship, doesn't even realize that we get to choose where that ship is going, and that has been preset, and that what we do every day wakes up and makes decisions that are, whether we like it or not, somehow aligned with that direction. So we're the wind in the sails, taking this ship over or the sailing boat over. Now, governance is the thing that sets the direction. It's the thing that organizes our energy to go over the cliff. We do not get a choice, because it's preset, to go over that cliff unless we know where that steering wheel is. But even if we get literate in governance, we don't get to not go over that cliff unless we're clear about how we want to turn that governance in a different direction. And if we're not clear about purpose, then we're going to be steering that ship and steering the rudder and the sails to just go over the cliff at a slightly different trajectory. The only way not to take life on Earth over a cliff of the unknown, which the scientists are screaming at us about, is to turn that ship and that rudder towards purpose. Purpose being long-term well-being for all. That is probably the first thing that we need to get clear. So these two things together, purpose governance and purpose governance, right? This is what I'm here to help with, in a way, is to try to simplify but not oversimplify what we need to focus our attention on in order to avert where we're going on this. And so purpose governance, purpose governance, purpose governance. Now, the challenge is, if not this, what, right? So I'm not here to say you have to think this. I'm just here to say, I don't see anything else, guys. In the absence of something else, let's do this. Now, this is not theoretical either. This is also deeply practical, because governance, so whereas purpose is the existential sense of what are we really trying to do here, guys? And the big win on that is to try to bring collectively, as humanity, a sense of clear and united vision around a goal of long-term well-being for all. These three things together that need to be continually debated, and that are the ultimate question of what we mean by these things for any generation of humans that live on this planet, on behalf of life on Earth and future generations and future life on Earth. In other words, what do we mean by well-being, i.e. a good life, i.e. flourishing, i.e. whatever we want to term